The bourbon in Joe Wilder's hand caught the penthouse lights like liquid amber, the ice cubes clinking against crystal. As he turned a page of his weathered Nietzsche text, Emma Price noticed his hands first, long fingers with a pianist's grace. Yet the knuckles bore faint scars that hinted at something far more dangerous beneath. The billionaire, philanthropist's polished exterior. When those ice-blue eyes locked onto hers, she felt an electric jolt of recognition, as if he'd been waiting for her all night. The party noise around them, the chatter of agents and starlets, the clinking of champagne flutes, faded into white noise. Emma Price, the hostess announced to the glittering crowd, fresh from Ohio with dreams of Hollywood. The way she said Ohio made it sound like a contagious disease. Joe's smile revealed perfect teeth, just slightly sharper than they should be. An actress? His voice dropped to a murmur only she could hear, vibrating through her bones. I've always admired performers. The way they was transform. His thumb brushed her wrist as he took her champagne flute to set aside, and Emma felt the touch linger like a brand. At 24, Emma still carried the wide-eyed wonder of a girl who believed in fairy tales, her hazel eyes reflecting every emotion like clear spring water. The thrift store dress she'd painstakingly altered now seemed ridiculous among the designer gowns. But when Joe looked at her, she felt like the most exquisite creature in the room. She didn't notice how his nostrils flared when she bit her lip, or how his grip tightened on his glass when she laughed at some producer's joke. She certainly didn't see the way his pupils dilated when a drop of sweat trailed down her throat. Nor could she know that her scent, that intoxicating mix of cheap shampoo and nervous excitement, made something primal stir in the darkest corners of Joe's mind. 6 whirlwind weeks later, Emma's sundresses hung beside Joe's tailored suits in his hillside mansion. By day, he was everything she'd dreamed of, bringing her coffee in bed with a single red rose on the tray, reciting French poetry while she cooked them vegetarian meals. I don't eat meat, he'd explained with that charming smile, though the real reason was far more sinister, tracing the constellation of freckles on her shoulders like they held cosmic secrets. But at night, the first scream came from the garden. Emma woke with a start. The digital clocks. Neon numbers reading 3:17. Bernie always 3:17. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she saw Joe kneeling naked in the rose garden, his back arched at an impossible angle, as something beneath, his skin pulsed and writhed like trapped animals. Dark liquid dripped from his mouth onto the white roses below, turning the petals burgundy. When she blinked, he was simply pruning bushes, his skin flawless in the moonlight. Gardening, he'd said the next morning, serving her blueberry pancakes with hands that showed no trace of soil. His smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. Those icy blue pools had grown darker lately, like a storm gathering at sea. Emma pretended not to notice the fresh mound of earth near the gazebo, or the way the gardener quit without notice last week. She told herself the lock of brunette hair she found in Joe's desk drawer, too coarse to be hers, must have belonged to some previous housekeeper. And when she woke one night to find Joe standing over her bed, his mouth smeared with something dark, she convinced herself it was just chocolate from the midnight snack she'd seen him eating earlier. Across town in his cramped Venice Beach apartment, Detective Frank Carter's walls were papered with photos of missing women. His sister Melissa smiled from the center of the collage. Same heart-shaped face as Emma. Same trusting eyes that still haunted his dreams. Frank's knuckles bore her name in faded tattoo ink, the letters blurred from years of punching walls and frustration. The LAPD had officially labeled him obsessed after the 5th complaint from Joe Wilder's lawyers. They hadn't seen what Frank had, the security footage from Melissa's apartment showing something with Joe's face moving faster than humanly possible. The audio recording of growls. They didn't know about the medical examiner's report that vanished from the system. The one describing bite marks that matched no known animal, the strange enzyme in the saliva that caused rapid tissue degeneration. Frank knew the Wilder family history too well. Their name appeared in police records, going back to the 1800s, always in connection with mysterious disappearances, always during full moons. The current Wilder patriarch, Reginald, had paid off countless officials over the years to keep his family's secret buried. Frank's own captain had taken one of those. Payoffs. He saw the bank statement, accidentally left on the desk. The $250,000 deposit marked consulting fee, dated the day after Melissa's case was closed. When Frank first saw Emma on Joe's arm at the Mocha Gala, his coffee cup shattered in his grip. She was already changing, her laughter a half beat too quick, her posture subtly smaller, as if trying to take up less space. The way she flinched when Joe touched the small of her back told Frank everything he needed to know. He'd seen that same reflexive shudder in Melissa during her final weeks. "Stay away from Carter," Joe whispered that night, his breath hot against Emma's neck as they swayed to the orchestra. His fingers dug into her waist, just shy of bruising, a warning disguised as passion. "He's obsessed with me, thinks I hurt his sister." Emma nodded, but couldn't shake the image of the detective's haunted eyes following her through the crowd. The full moon turned the Hollywood Hills into a silver dreamscape the night. Joe's control finally snapped. Emma woke to the sound of her bedroom door splintering open. The thing standing there wore Joe's skin like a poorly fitted suit, its jaw unhinging with wet cracks, claws scraping grooves into the mahogany door frame. The creature's golden eyes held no recognition as it sniffed the air. Drool pooling on the Persian rug, she ran, bare feet slapped against cold marble as she fled down the spiral staircase, the creature's guttural growls echoing through the mansion. Emma's hands shook too badly to dial 911. Instead, her fingers found Frank Carter's number in her recent calls, the detective having slipped her his card weeks ago at the farmer's market. Frank found her at dawn, curled in a 7-Eleven bathroom with her nightgown torn and feet bleeding. He didn't bother with platitudes. "Silver," he grunted, pressing a revolver into her shaking hands. The metal was cold against her palm. Aim for the heart. Their pickup truck never stood a chance against what came barreling down. Mulholland Drive. Emma would remember the crash in flashes, the world turning upside down, Frank's blood spattering the windshield, the deafening gunshots that left her ears ringing for days. Joe's human face flickered over the beast's snout as Frank fired the final bullet. "Emma," he gasped, red bubbles forming on his lips. His hand reached for her, claws retracting into fingers she'd once loved. "You were always my favorite." Then his body collapsed and vanished before the police arrived, leaving only a puddle of blackened blood that evaporated by morning. 6 months later, Emma sleeps with Frank's revolver under her pillow and salt lines across every threshold. The tabloids say Joe Wilder died in a yachting accident off Catalina Island. The LAPD closed 8 cold cases with great fanfare. But when the moon swells full, Emma wakes to find her windows open and the scent of roses thick in the air. On her nightstand, a single crimson bloom glistens with dew, or perhaps it's saliva. The roots are always freshly dug, the soil still warm from some unseen hand. And from Runyon Canyon below, a howl splits the night, equal parts mourning and promise. Somewhere in the darkness between streetlights, golden eyes watch and wait. The hunt, after all, was always Joe's favorite part. The night of the next blood moon, Emma prepared. Frank had taught her how to load silver bullets, how to line doorways with salt, how to spot the signs of Joe's return, but nothing could prepare her for the knock at her window. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Joe stood outside, his face half in shadow, half in moonlight. Again, but his eyes were wrong. "Emma," he whispered, his voice rough with something inhuman. "I missed you." She raised the gun, her hand steady for the first time in months. "You're dead." Joe smiled, and it was the same smile that had charmed her at that party months ago. "Death is just another transformation, darling." Behind him, shadows moved. Shapes emerged from the darkness, figures with glowing eyes, their forms flickering between human and beast. The pack, Joe's family. Frank had been right. Joe was just one of many. Emma pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, but Joe was already moving, faster than humanly possible. He lunged, and the world dissolved into teeth and claws and blood. When the police found her apartment the next morning, there was no sign of Emma, just a single red rose on the pillow, its petals stained dark, and from the hills above Los Angeles, a new howl joined the chorus of the night, a sound that was almost human, but not quite. The hunt, after all, was just beginning. At a penthouse party in New York, a fresh-faced girl from Ohio catches the eye of a handsome stranger. He offers her a glass of bourbon and a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. The cycle continues. Somewhere in the hills above Los Angeles, a new alpha rises. Her howl is sweet as honey, sharp as teeth.